an analysis on the recontextualization of historical content within fantasy games. Scholar William Uricchio discussed the two boundaries of the video game spectrum, as, quote, maximizing the accuracy of historical detail, and at the other extreme are games that deal with historical process in a somewhat abstracted or structural manner, unquote. In between the spectrum, many popular game titles have historical references embedded throughout their world-building or narratives. For this case study, I will be discussing the use of such references in the game Genshin Impact, and how integration of history in some manner could provide a sense of what the historical aspect might have been like. While the game borrows many aspects from the real world, I investigate how historical content is recontextualized in the main storyline, specifically in the fictional nation of Inazuma, based off of Edo Japan under the Tokugawa shogunate era from a player-centric perspective, using thematic analysis, exploring the parallels between the real world and game world. In particular, I argue that this game offers a richer understanding of historical events, beyond visual representations and conceptual inspirations, prominently the Sakoku policy and the Sword Hunt Edict of Edo Japan, reframed in the fictional narrative of the Inazuma chapter, with the main themes, mechanisms of regime governance, opposition towards the Vision Hunt Decree, and conflicting ideologies. To better understand the player's perspective through the protagonist, the Traveler, this fantasy and action RPG game sets the player in an open world to discover the nations of the world Teyvat. The player would set on a journey to find a lost twin sibling by meeting with each Archon, a nation's god and ruler, to ask for help. The research questions I will be exploring are: how does recontextualization of historical events in a fantasy game allow players to get an understanding of the historical reality during those periods? What game mechanics shape the player's experience of the story, and how do they influence the player's perception of those historical events? To begin, the theme mechanisms of regime governance presents three sub-themes, starting with the inner workings and organizational operations. In Inazuma, the authority comprises the Archon Raiden Shogun, a puppet created by the true Archon named Raiden A, and the governmental administration of the Tri-Commission, the Tenryou, Kanjo, and Yashiro. According to historian Vaporous, implementation of decrees like Toyotomi Hideyoshi's Sword Hunt was created as a, quote, part of a broad series of social, economic, and political reforms, aimed at pacifying a society and building a stable governmental rule over the entire country, unquote. Throughout the story quest, it is revealed how the state control from enacting the two decrees, Sakoku and the Vision Hunt, was done with the Archon's intention of protecting her people, but was achieved by the authorities' manipulation, specifically the Tenryou and Kanjo commissions, through forging documents sent to the puppet shogun, imposing exorbitant taxes on foreigners, and collusion with the Fatui, an infamous organization with their own personal agenda. This mirrors how what is perceived to be harmless, such as the isolation policy in Edo Japan, as Cullen argues, was then viewed to be regulated by quote-unquote despotic power. This parallel presents the double-sided nature of laws as a benefit for certain groups and characterizes the power imbalance of those who unfairly use their power for what seems as a safeguarding purpose. This reference and characterization of the in-game authority then presents a negative image of the real-world reference, with connotations to hostile and controlling powers. Moreover, the state isolationism of Inazuma, the Sakoku Decree, demonstrates the restriction and strict procedures during the historical era. In-game, the quest begins with an NPC describing her escape from Inazuma to the nation of Liyue, due to everything being quote-unquote too restrictive, and having a strict approval process upon entry and exit. As for the Traveler, being an outlander meant they were not entirely welcome to the whole nation, only being limited to the area of Rito. In historical times, foreigners like the Dutch and Chinese had a 1-year duration of stay allowed, and the Dutch with their marine vessels were mandated to submit the Fusetsugaki, documents to be sent to the governmental administration. Likewise, outlanders to Inazuma were only granted entry for business purposes, as was the case in Edo, Japan, where the policy was feasible, quote, as long as the retreat of Westerners in the 1630s made its pursuit realistic, unquote. This isolationist system, in turn, suggests that both real and fictional polities were dismissive of foreign influences, seemingly to prioritize a certain lifestyle or ideals of the government. From the story quest progression, the narrative displays a sense of a suffocating life under the surveillance of those with power. Correspondingly, the instigation of the Vision Hunt Decree, later known as the Fatui's Doing, was conducive to the authorities' oppressive approach. Visions are amulets that people use to gain access to elemental powers that parallels the weapons commoners had in Edo, Japan, where they could participate in fights with or against a local military leader's army. The Archon perceives visions as incompatible to her goal of eternity, wishing an, quote, endless and unchanging will to rule over Inazuma, unquote. Meanwhile, the decree is exploited by the Tenryo Commission's leader for the purpose of self-preservation, protecting his clan's position by upholding the decree and collaborating with the Fatui. Vapor states how the Sword Hunt Edict differentiated the samurai and peasants, which historians refer to as quote-unquote status system for fostering peace. Despite the title Sword Hunt, all weapons were confiscated, preventing uprisings and rebellions against tax collections, and rendered the farmers and peasants powerless. Another parallel is the use of visions in the statue of the shogun, a symbol of eternity, compared by the reuse of sword materials in building the great Buddha statue, considered to be an, quote, act by which the farmers will be saved in this life, unquote. Under those circumstances, the policy demonstrates the authority's supremacy that paints the actual history as an era of prejudice and injustice for the common people, where players may wonder how such a life was endured. Overall, this aspect of the fictional narrative allows for reflection upon the roles of those who hold power and the everyday people in the historical time, questioning the ethics, fairness, and rationality of the policies. Furthermore, the theme Opposition towards the Vision Hunt Decree examines the external reality and psychological dimensions. Key characters in opposition include Ayaka and Thoma from the Yashiro Commission, expressing how the, quote, Commission's power rises and falls with the trust of their people, unquote, and Kokomi, who leads a resistance group. In doing so, those against the Archon's policy made sacrifices, such as the resistance soldiers' use of delusions, similar to visions, jeopardy of the Yashiro Commission, and the traveler's sacrifice of joining the rebellion, which, with the nature of the game's design, was a forced choice that risked the opportunity to be on good terms with the Archon. From the traveler's POV, I observed how the Inazumans desired change and the right to live freely, not restricted to the borders or withholding using visions. Additionally, the ludo-narrative elements, the storyline's linearity and limited dialogue options, immerses players in a forced perspective. For instance, playing as a traveler whose primary goal is to find their sibling made me see things their way. In like manner, the game mechanics, notably the deactivation of elemental abilities, made the gameplay experience difficult and frustrating. In this view, the recontextualization of historical points, the bureaucratic control by a tyrannical power, and stratified society, as Cullen and Vapor's account, shaped the player's interactive experience of sharing the same sentiments as the other characters. Similarly, on the psychological side of the narrative, indifference is evident, with the majority of Inazumans unconcerned because not everyone has a vision. The puppet Shogun's neglect of social unrest, as she is programmed to solely focus on pursuing eternity, and even the traveler who was reluctant to help at the beginning. As the story advanced, I empathized both with the traveler's priorities and the opposition's intentions. Feeling the weight of responsibility as the game's protagonist, and seeing how the NPCs dealt with the policy's adverse consequences, the traveler themselves began to care, finally reaching an understanding of the rebellion's resolve to injustice. Witnessing each character's emotional experiences displays a glimpse of the civilians' hardships that can lead players to question how the marginalized people in the historical time felt. Lastly, the third theme of conflicting ideologies addresses the core of the story quest, that is, ambition as a catalyst for agency and the pursuit of eternity. To reiterate, visions are things granted by the gods to certain individuals with powerful ambitions. And such, impacts from the loss of vision include forgetfulness of one's memories and purpose, where an NPC forgot his greatest ambition of, quote, taking on seemingly endless debts to make others happy, unquote, for without it, a person's aspiration ceases. Comparatively, delusions manufactured by the Fatui to profit off of the vision hunt differ from visions by how anyone can access elemental powers, but presents consequences like accelerated aging. With or without the use of visions or delusions, ambitions correspond to one's purpose and influences the characters in exercising their agency. For example, Yae Miko decided to intervene by helping the traveler defeat the Archon, despite being her friend, to abolish the decree and to bring her back to the physical world. Another character named Kazuha confronts the Archon, as she attacks the traveler, which activated his and his friends' visions, and manifested the intensity of ambitions. Thus, the authoritarian state is so concerned about visions as the people's ambitions disrupt the Archon's ideal, the antithesis to eternity. Put together, the character's efforts and willpower to resist proves how powerful agency is when it is realized. In contrast, Raiden A's eternity is rooted in the fear of loss, having the pain of losing her twin sister, the previous Archon, and causing her to, quote-unquote, purge all obstacles to progress, regarding ambitions as a threat and visions as capable of bringing change. In achieving eternity, she faced the costs of preserving her consciousness in her sword, meditating in her realm, and rejecting change, concluding that stagnation would protect her people from similar suffering, as, quote-unquote, people have far more to lose by chasing their dreams. Somehow, it seems that the objective of eternity is futile, not actually presenting a concrete outcome where the nation's history is being erased, for the sake of preventing future ruin. As the price to be paid, the people's lived experiences and memories would be left in the past, and essentially would live an aimless and passive existence. Consequently, however grand the ideals are, those with power are oblivious or neglectful of its implications on ordinary citizens, and what may be deemed as the collective good ultimately deprives people of their rights. In essence, video games as a medium allows for understanding of various experiences, through learning the background and past of a story and how characters handle challenges and face their realities. Coupled with the immersive and interactive capacities the games offer, where players can feel the emotions evoked from the story and gameplay experience, it could truly encourage active engagement, especially for historically inspired games, to grasp the themes and have curiosity for the complexities of the historical counterpart, bridging the gap between entertainment and meaningful reflection.